Story 1. The man in the window across the alley. I didn't notice him at first. It took weeks before I realized the window across the alley was never empty. I moved into the apartment during late autumn when the air smelled like damp leaves and the sun disappeared before I got home from work. The building was old but cheap, tucked between two taller complexes that blocked most of the street noise. At night, the alley below turned into a narrow canyon of darkness. My living room window faced directly into another apartment building across the alley. Their windows were close enough that you could see silhouettes moving behind curtains. At first, it felt comforting, proof that I wasn't alone. Then one night, while eating leftovers, I looked up and saw him. He was standing in the dark window, directly across from mine. No lights on behind him. Just a shape, still watching. I assumed he was looking outside, not me. But when I stepped to the side, his head moved slightly, following. I told myself it was coincidence. People look out windows. That's normal. But the next night, he was there again, standing in darkness, not moving, not doing anything, just facing my apartment. I began closing my blinds earlier. Still, curiosity kept pulling me back. Around midnight one evening, I lifted the blinds just an inch. He was still there, as if he hadn't moved in hours. I remember a strange pressure building in my chest. Not fear exactly, more like the awareness of being observed. The following week, I began noticing patterns. He never turned lights on. He never sat down. He never left the frame of that window. Even on nights when rain lashed the glass and wind rattled the alley trash bins, he remained standing, watching. One night I waved, just to prove to myself this was ridiculous. He did not wave back, but his head tilted slightly to the side. That movement sent a cold ripple down my spine. After that, I stopped opening my blinds at night, but knowing he was there became worse than seeing him. I started hearing things. Soft metallic sounds from the alley. A faint scrape, like something dragging across concrete. Once, around 2 a.m., I heard slow footsteps echo between the walls below. I checked through the peephole. No one in the home. When I finally worked up the courage to look across the alley again, his window was empty. For the first time, relief washed over me. Until I went to bed. At 3:17 a.m., I woke to a sound. A soft knock. Not on my door, on my window. I froze. My apartment was on the 4th floor. Another knock. Gentle, deliberate. I forced myself to sit up. The blinds were closed. The knocking stopped. Silence filled the room so completely that my ears began ringing. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next evening, his silhouette was back, standing in the dark, watching. But now I noticed something new. His face was closer to the glass, and I realized he wasn't looking at my apartment. He was looking directly at my bedroom window. I never opened the blinds again. But some nights, when the alley is silent and the city seems to hold its breath, I still hear faint tapping against the glass. Story 2. The neighbor who only came outside at night. The first time I saw my neighbor, it was 2:40 in the morning. He was standing at the edge of his driveway, completely still, staring down the street. I had just moved into a small rental house on a quiet suburban block. During the day, the neighborhood seemed harmless. Kids riding bikes, dogs barking, lawnmowers humming. At night it changed. The silence became heavy. Sound traveled farther. Even small noises felt amplified. That first night, I couldn't sleep, so I stepped onto my porch for air. That's when I saw him. Tall, thin, motionless. No phone, no cigarette, no reason to be outside. Just standing, facing the darkness at the end of the road. I assumed he was waiting for someone, but 10 minutes passed, then 20. He never moved. The next night he was there again. Same spot, same posture, same stillness. I began noticing a routine. He came out sometime after 2 a.m. He stood at the end of his driveway. He stared down the street. He stayed there for long stretches without moving. One night I heard him whispering. I couldn't make out words, just a low murmur, as if he was speaking to someone too far away to see. A cold unease settled into my stomach. I started locking my doors earlier, checking windows twice. The street lights flickered often on our block. When they dimmed, his silhouette became a darker shape against darkness. One night, I turned off my porch light to watch unnoticed. He slowly turned his head toward my house. I stepped back immediately. My heart pounded so hard, I could feel it in my throat. The next morning, I noticed footprints in the dew across my front lawn. Large prints, leading from the sidewalk toward my porch, stopping halfway, turning back. I told myself it was nothing. Kids, delivery drivers, anyone. But the following night, I heard gravel crunch outside my bedroom window. Slow steps, stopping, then silence. I lay frozen in bed, listening. My house felt too quiet, too exposed. After several minutes, I forced myself to peek through the curtain. The yard was empty, but across the street, he stood in his driveway, facing my house. That was the first time I saw his face clearly. Not angry, not emotional, just blank, as if studying me. The pattern escalated after that. I began waking to faint footsteps circling the house. Once, the sound of fingers lightly brushing against the siding. Another night, 3 soft knocks at the back door. Never again after I turned on the lights. One night, around 3 a.m., I heard whispering right outside my bedroom wall. Not loud, not urgent, just soft, continuous murmuring. I stopped breathing. The whispering stopped too, as if whoever was outside was listening back. I never looked. I couldn't. 2 days later, a police cruiser idled at the neighbor's house during daylight hours. I watched from behind my curtain. They spoke with him briefly, then left. That night he returned to the driveway, standing, facing my house. But this time, he was smiling. I moved out 3 weeks later. The landlord never mentioned another tenant living there after me. But sometimes, when I wake in the middle of the night, I feel the same heavy silence pressing against the wall. And I wonder if someone is standing just beyond the darkness, watching the house, waiting for the lights to go out. Story 3. The apartment below. Mine was supposed to be empty. The unit below mine was vacant. At least that's what management told me when I signed the lease. The building was quiet. Only 6 units total. And the empty apartment beneath me was one of the reasons I chose it. No footsteps below. No late night music. No noise. For the first 2 weeks it stayed silent. Then one night around midnight, I heard a chair scrape across the floor. I sat up in bed, confused. The sound had come from below. I waited. Silence returned. Old buildings carry noise strangely, I told myself. It could have come from anywhere. But the next night, I heard it again. A slow dragging sound. Then a dull thump, The following evening, I asked the landlord if someone had moved in. He shook his head. Still empty. That should have reassured me. It didn't, because the sounds continued. Soft movement at night. Slow footsteps. Something lightly tapping the ceiling beneath my bedroom, as if someone were mapping the room above. I started sleeping with a fan on to drown out noise. It didn't help. One night, I woke to a faint rhythmic sound. Tap, 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 directly under my bed. I sat frozen in darkness, staring at the ceiling. The tapping stopped. Then 3 slow knocks echoed from below. I didn't sleep. The next morning, I placed a glass of water on my bedroom floor before leaving for work. When I returned, it had shifted several inches. No earthquakes, no vibrations, just moved. The following night, I heard whispering, muted voices seeping through the floorboards. Too faint to understand, but definitely human. I pressed my ear to the floor. Silence. Then, a slow exhale from below. I recoiled. After that, I began noticing the smell. A faint odor drifting upward through the vents. Damp fabric, stale air. Something lived in, but no one lived there. One night, unable to take it anymore, I crouched in the hallway and listened at the door to the empty unit. At first, nothing. Then, inside, a soft footstep followed by another. I backed away slowly. The next morning, I asked management to unlock the apartment. They insisted it was empty but agreed to check. We entered together. Dust coated the floor. No furniture, no footprints, no signs of anyone. But in the center of the living room ceiling, directly beneath my bed, were 3 faint circular marks, as if someone had repeatedly pressed their fingertips upward into the plaster. That night, I dragged my mattress into the living room upstairs. I couldn't sleep in that room anymore. At 2:13 a.m., 3 knocks sounded from the floor beneath my new sleeping spot. Slow, deliberate, followed by the sound of something dragging across the ceiling below. Searching. I moved out the following week. Months later, I drove past the building. My old unit's lights were off, but in the dark window of the apartment below, someone was standing inside, looking up.